Today, the forecast outside of Trump Tower, 100% paint drop. A lot more coming right up. Welcome to Black Spring on your Wednesday. And this was a bit of a sporadic or an 11th hour on this particular stream, but it's not normally a part of the schedule, which I think it will be a part of the new schedule that I will be releasing later this week or by the weekend. So I'd like to once again, it's Wednesday, and shout out to all the loyal patrons as well as you, the subscribers. Shout out to Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Chrysler Imperial H, Angel's Army, the former Angel Munez Variety Show. A special shout out to Cold War Jesus and Little Miss Goth, and Let the Truth Be Told. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring on your Wednesday. Good morning to you, Chrysler Imperial H and Garrett Reed. Good morning to you. Thank you guys so much for taking care with your thumbs up, thumbs down. And for those of you who are pondering or daring to share the stream, I really appreciate that for the sake of Channelytics, as well as just making sure that you're still subscribed to the channel during these times. It really helps. Of course, a lot going on in the government as well as in politics. So we're going to do this stream. I'm going to probably keep it within probably keep it an hour. We're going to do, but we have a few things to get into. Of course, it's going to be heavily nuanced in, of course, rhetoric and hypocrisy and all of these elements that we deal with on the daily here on Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Also, if you're interested in the community tab, what's happening on the community tab, I mentioned that as the post is a part of what I'm calling your mask edification. So, we just have so many contradicting guidelines and elements, and they vary from state to state. We have Fauci that has appeared on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much, Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We even had Fauci he can't even answer a direct question as to how, he can't even answer. He can't even distinguish whether or not peaceful burning downs and peaceful rioting, if that actually should that be curtailed in such a pandemic. Credibility, to me, he's already shot. Fauci seems to be America's version of Tedros Adhanom, and that would be the WHO organization. That's their general. He's more of a bureaucrat than he is acting as it's he's more of a bureaucrat, and both of the figures have their own backgrounds that are pretty seedy and pretty unethical. So there again, that's what we're dealing with. So there, I'll move on from that. But what we'll begin with is actually going to be a follow-up. We're going to have a bit of a follow-up on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And we're going to take you back just when you think you're done with the Chaz or the Chop Zone. You end back there, because the narrative is just really not boding well. It's really not boding well for them. And, we're going to take a look at that. So, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you guys so much for doing your due diligence on the Channelytics where available. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to be showing you, I have some footage. We will keep going. So once again, shout out to everybody that's in the stream already. Really appreciate you guys for all that you do and for your time spent here on Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you. Hoping that this little issue, my little nemesis technology issue, will resolve itself. I've already done some proactive things to avoid some of the drama, but see. So apparently the cannibal culture is real, and we're going to have some footage, or we're going to have some coverage, and we're going to have a letter from the actual, we're going to have an actual letter from the Seattle police chief. Thank you guys so much for really appreciate you guys. Let's move things along here a little bit. So yeah, we will have some coverage from the event. And we'll also have we have a letter from the actual police chief expressing her concerns. Now, I find this ironic as ever, but that's what you get in these times. You get irony, hypocrisy, you get all of the above. Shout out to you, the definition of anarchy. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. So it looks like and then we'll get some In fact, apparently the Seattle police chief urges the city council to denounce the protest at her home. So this is going to be her own letter that she has penned to the council. Get that in full screen there. Okay, shout out to the Unique View. Shout out to you guys. It was when I say cannibals, I'm the cannibal. Well, that too, Killer Will. The cannibal culture, the political cannibal culture amongst the left. So apparently this was written by Chief Carmen Best on it's August 3rd, 2020. So this is the letter. RE, intimidation of public officials and employees. All right, so she's written this to Lorena Gonzalez, president, and Lisa Herbold, the public safety chair of the Seattle City Council, the City Hall. So here she writes, Dear President Gonzalez, Chairwoman Herbold, and the Seattle City Council members, I wanted to update you on recent events, particularly those that occurred late last night. A resident of mine of Snohomish, Yikes County, was targeted by a large group of aggressive protesters late last night. My neighbors were concerned by such a large group, but they were successful in ensuring the crowd was not able to trespass or engage in other illegal behavior in the area. Despite repeated attempts to do so, currently the local sheriff, not the SPD resources, is monitoring the situation. So you notice the exclusion, it's not, she's making that known, it's not the Seattle Police Department resources that are monitoring her, apparently her jurisdiction. I urge both of you and the entire council to stand up for what is right. These direct actions against elected officials and especially civil servants like myself are out of line with and go against every democratic principle that guides our nation. Before this devolves into the new way of doing business by mob rule. Oh, look at the language. Here in Seattle and across the nation, elected officials like you must forcefully call for an end of these tactics. The events of this summer were initiated in a moment of grief and outrage over the murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis police officers and so many other Black and brown people suffering at the hands of injustice. I knew it wouldn't take long. All of us must ensure that this righteous cause is not lost in the confusion of so many protesters now engaging in violence and intimidation, which many are not speaking against. Sincerely, Carmen Best, Chief of Police, Seattle Police Department. Okay, so she says now, as if they just started committing violence, or they just started being insurgents, or they just started. Well, it's interesting. This is no different than the reaction of their own mayor. That when it comes to your doorstep, there's a problem. And my issue with Carmen Best is it's for one, it's a derelict. She's derelict in her own duty and honoring the governor. Was it Durkin? She honored the mayor and been basically letting them take over the Seattle Police Department, to take over their entire precinct. I mean, when the shoe was not on her foot, she maintained her sympathizer and loyalist attitude or position towards BLM. Carmen Best never denounced BLM herself. So I'm saying this is a conflict of interest. And to me, she's setting a horrible example for law enforcement, because if you are too conflicted to enforce the law or to uphold your oath of office and uphold your oath to the nation, then what are you doing? You're no better than the people that you're attacking. But until it came to your door and that another jurisdiction had to protect your home from being attacked by a large group of protesters, you couldn't seriously acknowledge, and you're still softballing it right now. You're still not denouncing BLM. You're still not. You're saying the cause is being corrupted or infiltrated on some level, but you still haven't identified the banner in which these infiltrators or these insurgents fly under. She's still not doing that. And then even more disgusting than that, just from a humane and an empathizer herself, she couldn't even empathize with Mr. Anderson or his family. Nobody, in Mr. Anderson's own words, nobody in the Seattle local government contacted him in regards to his son. In fact, he was delayed, according to him, I'm paraphrasing, in the process of even, the initial identification of his son, which he happened to be special needs. So what was her concern? Where was her empathy for him? It wasn't there. So now you want people to empathize with you because now these same people you were protecting are attacking your house, your property. Which, of course, this doesn't come without any blowback. Shout out to Luciano. How are you guys doing? Thank you guys so much for coming in. I appreciate it. You guys could do your due diligence and take care with those thumbs up, thumbs down, shares. Thank you so much, Chrysler Imperial H, for sharing out the stream. I really appreciate it. And also, thank you guys. Please, if you could make sure that you are still subscribed. We have to, this is housekeeping, but, more or less more reindeer games, right? Thank you guys so much for that. So what I'm going to do now is we'll go into a little bit of the blowback. Of course, she didn't pen this without any blowback. So I'm going to keep going here. So, I mean, of course, this document that you see before you is just it's outlining, of course, it's, just CCing the other council members. So I just don't, so she expects to have a united front when it comes to her doorstep, and she wants empathy for her situation now. But the thing about it is you can't have it both ways. I don't know. You can't have it both ways. And I would think that the citizens, should be there should be tons of civic suits, because she is failing to, she and that entire city, they have failed to protect and to uphold the law and uphold peace. This was never a peaceable assembly. But she says now. And so to me, that's totally negating everything that happened prior to her home. See, you can't, how can you trust, how can anybody take these people seriously? How can you? How can you take the safety of your own neighborhood seriously with somebody denying everything up until it came to their doorstep? And then did she really think she wasn't going to be next? I mean, it's a total cannibal culture, because if that organization, BLM, is if they're in the least bit pro-Black, how could they attack the Carmen Best? How could they attack her home? How could they put her under siege? There's no way. And she's probably even higher on their radar now that she's coming out on some level, but she has yet to denounce BLM. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to bring the footage right now, some of the sound bites that I have, some sound bites and the visuals. Thank you guys so much. And then also we'll revisit just a little bit. So a little bit on some other commentary there, but the hypocrisy is thick. All right. So I'm going to take you there. Hope everybody's doing well on your Wednesday. So here we're going to go to a bit of coverage. I mean, Seattle is going to be one to watch. Seattle, Portland, all of these cities. The terrorism tour continues. I mean, I think Austin is the next target, is what I'm hearing from sources, but I will come back with that once I can confirm more. So that's what I'm hearing right now, but I will try to follow up with you on that. Thank you guys so much, and I'll take you to the coverage now.
Showed up at Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best's home over the weekend. Today, the chief is also asking the council to denounce the activity, and they're not doing it. It is a hot-button issue. Are protesters going too far, or have their voices been silenced for too long? Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. I'm Mark Wright.
I'm Joyce Taylor. Good evening. Well, city leaders want their personal lives separated from their professional ones, and they're looking for some peace and quiet. King 5's Chris Daniels joining us live outside Seattle City Hall with some context tonight about what's going on. Chris, good evening.
Hi, Joyce. Hi, Mark. Good evening to you. Protests, as you know, have occurred outside the homes of public leaders, public officials, public figures in Seattle now for years, but we have not seen the size, repetition, and vandalism that we have seen in the last few days. The council members were in all-day meetings today. A couple of them did address these protests, and they also did not discourage them. Vandalism, graffiti have marked the mayor's home and multiple city council members in recent weeks. On Saturday night in rural Snohomish County, a large group showed up at Police Chief Carmen Best's residence.
We don't have guns. You're the ones with guns.
And received a less than warm welcome from the neighbors.
We have a right to walk there.
Today, Best urged the council to stand up for what's right before this devolves into the new way of doing business by mob rule here in Seattle and across the nation. Elected officials like you must forcefully call for the end of these tactics, with Snohomish County Sheriff adding it is a bullying tactic that will certainly require an extra patrol response.
I take exception to the response by our police chief, who celebrated that her neighbors met these young people with guns.
Seattle Councilmember Tammy Morales was the only elected official to address Best today.
This is a civics experience. Not okay for parks, we'd have a bigger problem. And that's all I have to say.
Of course, all of this is centered around the continued discussion about defunding the police department and cutting back that police department budget. Those discussions continued today via a virtual council meeting, and there could be a committee vote on it later this week. That's the story for now. Live in Seattle at Seattle City Hall, I'm Chris Daniels, King 5 News.
All right, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Thank you guys for taking care with your thumbs up, thumbs down.
Hi, I'm Brett Callen, and in this video, I'm going to show you how anyone can quickly...
All right, sorry about that. But shout out to the rapper 10,000, who says, now Oprah and the left are changing the definition of racism. Chrysler Imperial says, if the mayor of Seattle would let the cops do their jobs, she wouldn't have to worry about the protesters going to her house. So what I'm going to do is we're going to one more follow up on this particular story. So now you've got an attack from the police chief's home has been under attack by the protesters. Hi, Robert L. Thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it. Welcome in. Thank you so much for coming. So we'll have a little bit more on the activist pushback. Of course. Of course. So, you know, I don't know how. I'm just thinking, but you, as the mayor, you had an opportunity to stand up for what was right and to denounce these groups, and you didn't do that. And now you're going to the council. It took her home to be attacked for her to go to the city and say, this is not going to work. But then here's the rhetoric, that they use in that opening. Or have they been silenced too long? These protesters, just keep talking about these peaceful arsonists and peaceful, vandalists and peaceful protesters. So there again, there's your justification saying that they've been silenced too long. So according to this, now what you have before you now comes from the SeattlePI.com. As the Seattle Police Department Chief Carmen Best on Sunday night published a letter, the one that we opened with, to the Seattle City Council, asking for them to, quote, forcefully call for the end quote, of tactics she accused protesters of the night before. So, but I'm just saying, forcefully, you would be a part of the forcefulness that you're calling for. Do you see how these people are walking contradictions? I mean, you want force. You're asking for force, but then you're standing down and you're a part of the force. It doesn't quite spell, I think all of their entire city, she needs to be recalled, the mayor and the police chief. Now that they've had their homes attacked, they want to see action. They want forceful action. And they're probably also going to ask, along with the rest, they're going to start asking for bailouts for all the destruction and all of the losses. So I'll continue with that. Okay, Beth said her home in Snohomish County, quote, was targeted by a large group of aggressive protesters in, quote, late Saturday night. She said her neighbors and the Snohomish County sheriff prevented the group from trespassing or engaging, quote, in other illegal behavior in the area. There was no evidence that protesters had engaged in any illegal activity that night in the small Snohomish town. Of course it is. And that's the crook, the crook. Because they were not successful, no evidence, but you had probable cause. You still had probable cause. If you can see the picture, there's actually a truck, I think, blocking the road. So there again, that is submission. They haven't, I don't even think they've done a full investigation, but then they're going to print there's no evidence. Always protecting the criminal element, right? Could protect the insurgents. All right, the language here. Okay, so the activists quickly rebuked Best accounts of the event. So here we go. Some by pointing out a Facebook post that showed a blockade of trucks and residents with a caption that accused, quote, Antifa, end quote, of, quote, invading a small town in Snohomish County last night, end quote. Another post in defense of Best circulated by activists on Twitter showed a gun. So according to this little Twitter cap that you see, says this is absolutely unhinged. The everyday march, which has peacefully marched mornings and evenings every day and been the victims of multiple violent attacks, was stopped in Snohomish last night by an armed group of local residents, including the local sheriff. Look at this. So as you can see here, I'm not sure, somebody's having some faux or whatever, and looks like, I don't know, maybe that's either like a 9mm or something right there. I'm not sure who this person is. But then as you can see, you have a pickup truck here blocking the street, some other vehicles. I mean, it's admirable, and it's very American that some citizens were able to protect the sheriff's home. But my gosh, this woman she's violated and betrayed her own oath of office to them. Another sheriff was standing by. I mean, what kind of world is this? What kind of community is that? I mean, I'm going to keep going here. Okay, Nikita Oliver, a former Seattle mayoral candidate, activist, and attorney, tweeted a reply to the letter. So here's your reply. 1, Chief Best has multiple residences. Best's neighbor ensured that the protesters didn't do anything, quote, illegal. So Chief Best is in support of vigilante justice. When have the mayor or chief supported this movement? And number 4, she says, remember when Best said during press conference, no one from the council asked her opinion on the police budget. She said that was unfair. It looks to me like she has no problem nor lack of apparatus for making her opinions known to them when it suits her agenda. Just saying, end quote. Best also wrote the action she described distracted from further progress. Quote, the events of this summer were initiated in a moment of grief and outrage over the murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis police officers and so many other Black and brown people suffering at the hands of justice. All of us must ensure that the righteous cause is not lost in the confusion of so many protesters now engaging in violence and intimidation, which many are not speaking against, end quote, the letter said. Robert Cruikshank, a local progressive leader and campaign director of Demand Progress, tweeted Sunday, quote, Carmen Best and SPD are also engaging in a classic change the conversation game ahead of this week's, quote, hashtag defund this Seattle Police Department. So that's hashtag defund SPD vote, hoping we talk about a protest at someone's house rather than SPD offers murdering, quote, hashtag Charlena Lyles inside her own home in front of her children. So there's a progressive for you. He probably wants the police officers' names and numbers on their back like football players. You know, true rebel style, true revolutionary communist tactics, right? So liberal elites and their pet projects for the Black community. So here we have Best hasn't been the first city leader to have protesters approach her doorstep. Several city council members, including Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda, who had them in front of her house Sunday night, and Mayor Jenny Durkin have had protesters demand action outside their homes, which has been pointed out isn't a new form of protest. Independent journalist Erica C. Barnett wrote Monday morning on her site that nonviolent protests at the homes of elected officials are protected free speech, and pointed out that historically these acts of protest are used when citizens feel they cannot access their elected officials through council meetings or town halls. The strategy was used repeatedly during the civil rights movement in the 1960s. So here we go. And to wrap this one out, it says the council is getting close to voting on whether to make significant cuts to the Seattle Police Department after council members laid out a plan Friday with proposals that wouldn't bring the sweeping change protesters have called for this year, namely cutting the department's budget by 50%, but would create a civilian-led Department of Community Safety and Violence Prevention at the end of 2021. Some proposals could lay off many officers this year as they look to have enough support. This includes severe cuts to the Seattle Police's mounted units, the controversial navigation team, and SWAT units. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Yeah, see this whole narrative about the whole peaceful thing, because they flipped it. You know, you're living in a topsy-turvy world right now. You know, you're going to be the villain because you're saying that they're doing wrong when they actually are. Okay, so this is, and look, the Chaz Chop aftermath is going to be something we're going to continue to follow around here, because you know, it's not getting any better. It's, you know, I really don't think it's going to get any better. In fact, they're going to continue, and they want to, now they're quoting the civil rights movement of 1960. Now, all of that has been conflated as well. There's a lot of con and a lot of conflation. The thing about it is, if you talk to anybody that actually lived during the civil rights movement, people that were actually in the cradle of the Confederacy, their narrative about the 1960s and the civil rights movement is very different than what this narrative that's being told right now. And you guys better believe, while we're sanitizing and swiping all of America's culture and history away with this postmodernist culture to replace it, a new story is going to be told about what's going on right now. They're going to say that America, the evil American government, came in and those peaceful protesters were there to save the day. We had to fight the unmarked officers coming in that were deployed by the Trump campaign, the Trump administration. So just wait for it. And that's why I think it was pretty poignant, that point that Glenn Beck made. You can make a journal right now, because if you don't make a journal and you've got kids coming up, you'll probably remember some specific things, but what they're going to read, if they don't get rid of history altogether, is that this was all peaceful. That's why they're maintaining that these are peaceful protests. They've already, this is the revision. They know exactly what they're doing. Shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena. Appreciate you guys on this. So, we're going to go to a little bit of a lighter note. It's not exactly lighter, but it's interesting. We have the forecast I told you outside of Trump Towers is the 100% paint drop. Got Operation Paint Drop. Also got drive-by paint drop. So we'll go away from the northwest left coast, and I'll take you over to some of that. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. DJ Vision Barnett, nice to see you. How are you doing? Nice to see you. Love to hear from you. Love to catch up with you. Shout out to Alien Believers. Thank you guys so much. We're going to go on over to, I will come back onto the screen here. Hopefully I can do it without so much. So here I am for just a second, and I will be right back. So we're going to go into another segment. We're going to go into another segment of our show, and we're going to do the Operation Paint Drop. That's hashtag Operation Paint Drop, that is. But I can honestly say that we can say Beverly Beatty, which before I do this, because people love to get their digs in when we're available in this thing we call social media and citizen journalism, or however you want to coin it. I am not advocating for anyone to go out and do anything drive-by. Not on any level. Not paint, not chalk, any of that. So it's a sick place that we are, that you might have to offer a disclaimer, or but this is what's being done. And this is what they're doing. So I'm going to put it out here, and but I'm not a representative of any specific group or political party. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, then I'll go ahead and drop the question of the day. Thank you guys so much for coming in. So here, we're going to get into some voter. The tone of the tone of the democratic process is a little bit where we'll go after this, but we'll do our Operation Paint Drop first, or our drive-by paint drop first, and we'll keep going. So the question of the day, or your mini poll of the day, would be: has America seen its last free and fair election? And if so, if you believe that, what year was that? And once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate you guys. Oh, and to the rapper, yes, I have seen that particular, I've seen that, the new footage on Floyd. But you know what, at this point, you can take people to, some people just enjoy the shadows on the wall, okay? And that's why I tell, enjoy the shadows on the wall. You can reject truth all you want. You can reject truth all you want, but they're not going to, most people will just say, oh, well, that's not real. Or, you're going to have people that say, nay, this and nay, that. But after all here again, none of this that we're seeing right now had anything to do with George Floyd's death. I submit that. That is my opinion. I mean, BLM has been, BLM is getting even more buzz. They've gotten more buzz during this time, but they were in existence before. BLM existed before this situation happened with George Floyd. They've got offices all over the country. This is what revolutionaries and communist tactics, this is what they're trained to do. They're trained to drum up. They're trained to divide. They're trained to make it appear that they've got popular support for what they're doing. And what the second part 3, they've been neutralizing the opposition with all the deaths that you've seen. You've seen deaths of Black people. You've seen deaths of white people. You've seen it. So, and then that, and you're starting to see more rainbows. You're starting to see more rainbows. You're starting to see, they're going to put this is an intersectionality communist revolution. It doesn't matter what they put in front of it. It's overthrow, overtake. It's about the revolution. So they can put anything in front of it, but the end game won't change. So I'm going to keep going here, and we're going to go to the Operation Paint Drop. You know, there's a bit of you know, it's a little bit paradoxically interest in this particular clip. So I'm going to go here, and Alien Believer says it's all part of the New World Order. They're doing this chaos, whatever brings chaos. Shout out to you, Alien Believers. Thank you guys so much, and also thank you guys so much for coming in. So what I'm going to do, I'll read some more comments in just a bit, but let me get on here to the, but before I do that, let's just have a quick look here at, and I had said we were done, but I just want to highlight the hypocrisy here. Okay, so we just finished a segment on Carmen Best, the Seattle police chief, whose home has been attacked by these revisionist protesters, peaceful protesters. And but I'm just wondering why didn't Miss Best have any empathy for her own citizens? You know, they say they want their lives to be private from this, but even that, she can't quite muster any condolences for Mr. Anderson's family. So just for kicks and giggles, let me take you over there. I'd like for you to hear what happened. Okay, you know, we had, you know, this is the final piece on that. Then we'll get to Operation. I apologize for digressing here, but this was the father of the teenager that was shot and killed near the Capitol Hill Occupy protest in Seattle, Washington. And this is where this comes from, of course, the Blaze. We've done this one before, but he says that the mayor had not called him. And I assume he didn't mention Carmen Best. Here's a black man. And he's a parent who lost his child in your city, in your jurisdiction. Did she call for any council action on this? I don't think so. So I'll take you to that, and then we'll move on to the paint drop. Thank you guys once again for coming in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Just a little bit of a delay there on the loading there. But yeah, so here again, this was Mr. Anderson, the father of the teen shot and killed in the chopped chest, says Seattle mayor hasn't called him, but Trump has. So I'm just thinking, you know, without further ado, I will bring you Mr. Anderson's statements.
I still ain't heard from the mayor. Incredibly, Donald Trump called me. The president of the United States called me today and talked to me today.
What did he say?
He gave his condolences. And me, I'm not a political guy, so I'm not, but I told him, you know, I didn't know nobody like you. You know, I'm real. I said, nobody like you, but on this camera, I tell you right now, Donald Trump called me. And he didn't have to call me. He didn't have to do nothing. So
there again, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a reminder, a little bit of the density of the hypocrisy here. You know, I mean, it just shows to me that these not only are these people, they're derelict in their duty and their judgment, but they have no empathy for anybody. They're very self-centered. They're very self-directed. I mean, that's a shame. You know, Durkin, you know, okay, let's give, okay, Durkin, I can't, this is not a pass. Let's give her a pass. Okay, Durkin, maybe you're a liberal. You happen to be a white liberal. But Carmen Best, you're a black woman, a black female. Let me check all the boxes here. You're a black female police chief. Maybe you're the first. But you couldn't muster anything for Mr. Anderson. But until they came to your house, it's the same. Durkin did the same thing when they came to her house. And Best did the same, is stepping it up by going to the city council. But she has not yet denounced any groups associated or any protest. Even if you say you just denounce the protest in the name of anything. Even if she did, okay, yeah, sidestep the name of the group, but she didn't even do that. So there you go. So I said I was going to be done with that, and that is done. I just wanted you to see that this, shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena here. She says, not being mean, but could be affirmative action hires, not who's best for the job. Best for the job. Am I allowed to say that? Yes, you are. But see, that's exactly what I'm saying. The more affirmative action that they do, the more they're going to, it's detrimental. It's not helpful. It's not helpful to hire somebody. It's not good representation. It's not good representation for the communities that you claim that you are doing something for. Man, please don't ever hire me to do something just because of my skin color. Please don't. Shout out to DJ Vision Barnett. He says, right, it's all about you can do the job, not the color of your skin. So yeah, I mean, I'm saying, all the best to Carmen Best. Oh, no pun intended there, but she needs to be recalled. And I'm thinking that, some lawsuits will come out of this. And they should. Mr. Anderson's very careful with his statements about politics. I noticed that as well. But I'm just saying, we're talking about, he spoke very passionately on Sean Hannity's show. And I think he needs to keep that same energy. If you don't want to see that happen to anyone else's child, then you're going to have to support somebody that's looking out for your interest, and stop voting and stop assisting people, in things that are going against your own interest, in the interest of where you live. So there we go. We're done with that. Sorry, I had to do so many pieces on that, but I thought it was, it's a little bit necessary to. I guess it's a bit of an expose. Luciano, this Creep Joe asked a black reporter if he's a junkie. Wow. Nothing from the hypocritical left except for the excuse of, oh, that's just Joe being Joe. Oi. All right, guys. Thanks so much. I appreciate you guys. So what we're going to do, we're going to move right on to Operation Paint Drop. Hope you guys are doing well. Okay, so we have another, we've seen Operation Paint Drop already. And of course, that was Beverly Beatty. She was the initial Operation Paint Drop. But there's so many others that are happy to do the same thing. And turns out many of these people actually don't have permits to do these things. Even in New York, I don't believe. Turns out, I think de Blasio, they didn't actually have an actual permit. Turns out, for the painting, the Black Lives Matter mural or whatever you want to call it outside of Trump Tower. So we're going to go with the first Operation Paint Drop. We'll do 2, and then we'll move on to the next segment. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this segment.
Yeah, you hold this for me. Yep. Operation Paint Drop. All right. He's going to go to 54th and 8th Avenue.
Did anybody see how he did it?
He walked right up and did it.
I love the guy that drove by. That's such a New York movie.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Derek C. Williams, for the share. I really appreciate that. Thank you guys so much. And we have another Operation Paint Drop. Now, I'm going to be honest. I think the 15 minutes of fame, if you will, for the lack of a better of a woke term on that, has probably expired. So the paint drops are probably going to start to not only wash away naturally, but there's probably the value of it is probably going to start to taper. But people are expressing their discontent with what's going on, and they are exposing some level of hypocrisy. Really, with the things that are going on right now, the best thing you can do is to expose things. Not to say that this is the medium that I would choose, but there seems to be a growing effort to expose the hypocrisy. So we're going to go with that. We're going to go with one more Operation Paint Drop. Hope you guys are doing well, and thank you so much for joining me on this segment. So I'm going to bring you the next one. Shout out to everybody in the stream. And here we go with Operation Paint Drop number 2. And this one has audio.
So this dude gets arrested for pouring paint over the paint on the street. And that's the thing. Is it really a crime to paint over graffiti? Then these ladies ended up pouring paint all over the place, and it's crazy because they say that they're going to go there every day to pour paint on the mural, and they say all lives matter.
Every day! Every motherfucking day! No, you won't! That's all lives matter! No, you won't!
And it's funny because you can hear somebody in the background saying, no, you won't. No, you won't.
That's all lives matter! No, you won't! They say Black Lives Matter, right? They say Black Lives Matter. Oh, they don't care about Black lives. They don't care about Black lives. They don't care. 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 Refund the police.
So the protesters are allowed to paint a mural, and these people aren't allowed to paint over top of it. It's kind of confusing in my mind. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below.
All right, so there you go. You got your Operation Paint Drop in a city where there is the bail reform is real, and I don't know, maybe that's the New York way, right? And that's I think that was a measure of De Blasio. So then on top of that, you had your Hollywood auxiliaries bailing people out. You know the culture by now. So we'll see what happens. So once again, I'd like to shout everybody out for taking their time and taking care with those thumbs up, thumbs down, sharing it out. Shout out to Derek C. Williams for sharing out the stream. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H, and thank you for sharing out the stream. Really appreciate it. So yeah, the rapper, I thought it was interesting. I think that the reason that I tagged that particular segment was somebody else's segment. Okay, shout out to you, DJ Vision Barnett. Thank you so much for still being here, and thank you for sharing your time with us. It's because I think there's a movement like an LGBT Trump group that I think that was the LGBT Trump group that was out there spreading the paint around. So unfortunately, this seems to be. I cringe to say this, and I want to say this, but it's almost as if that America has found there's some type of visual unity when you see the different types of people that are coming out to do these acts, whether you want to call them criminal, whether you want to call them vandals, whatever you want to call them at this point. They're doing their own version of activism, but you're seeing it's still the message. Somebody was holding an American flag while they were doing their Operation Paint Drop. So, I think that's the American clap back against what's going on, against the message, or against the insurgency and the con. So shout out to everybody in the stream. I mean, I would hate to think that America has to come together through finger paintings or, things that they're subject to go to jail for, but it's there for you to see. So thank you guys for indulging on that with me. Shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena. She says, yeah, there's some development there. I think I'm afraid there's going to be some more development there. Thank you guys so much. Shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena, Alien Believers, the Rapper 10,000. The rapper says Civil War and war with China is here. Yes, indeed, it is. Luciano says De Blasio threatens to lay off tens of thousands if there's no funding. Yeah, honestly, I just don't see. I've said this before. We're losing major battles. I don't know. I mean, the way things are going right now, I just don't know. I'm just saying they're staging a steal the election 2020 is what they're doing. And with all the things that, with all their paramilitaries that are in these streets have, they've caused, a lot of terror and loss of life. So what kind of America's it's going to take generations to restore America from the damage from these battles that we're losing. If it's to survive, we asked yesterday, I asked, is this America's winter? Yes, it is. So even if there is a win in November, these issues, how to turn all these things around, it's going to be a time consuming thing. It's going to take a commitment. And that's the thing that I find that people are not really committed to. You can't fight for freedom like 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 months out of the year, or once every 4 years, or once every 2 years. You have to You can't. I mean, I think I do believe I quoted James Madison. I'm paraphrasing right now. You know, if men were angels, you would not need government. Well, look at the government. Look at our government. I mean, was it Sally Yates is on Capitol Hill today? Dianne Feinstein is is still on this Russia collusion narrative. I mean, where is it? Where does it end? I mean, where's their justice in this system, the way that it is right now? All right, so I'm going to move us on to the next segment. So just want to bring you a little bit of perspective here. I don't think this perspective is not too far behind, but it's, you know, the whole mail-in vote and absentee ballot conflation is ridiculous. Everybody knows that an absentee ballot is a process. It's something that you do in advance. It's a process, but what these Democrat states want to do with this mass mail-in votes, it's not the same thing. And there are people that have specific reasons that they're doing absentee ballots. If they want to elect to do that, then that's fine. But stop. It's all the tactic is to conflate things. Mail-in vote, mass mail-in vote versus an absentee ballot. That's their job. It's their job. So with that said, I'm going to take you to a clip on that. So once again, thanks so much, everybody, for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So here, I'm going to bring you a story from NBC New York. And that is going to give you perspective on the mail-in votes. You know, because they, of course, the press vehemently denies in these press conferences, you know, they deny everything that's being said about, oh, it's safe. Oh, Hillary Clinton says it's safe. Oh, wow. You can't really make this stuff up. You can't. You could, but see, I put a page. Chrysler says, when you get a chance, go to my page. I uploaded another video. I said, cool, we'll do. I'm a little bit behind on your page, but I'm going there. Thanks so much, Chrysler. Imperial H. And Chrysler says, I do vote by mail, but I do not mail it back in. I literally walk it over to my polling place and drop it off, but I do not mail it back in. Okay. All right. So, you know, we're looking for, you know, there is an election integrity project. And that's what I'm saying. You know, I mean, the right or the conservative seems to, you know, fight things from a legal, fight these people or these factions on a legal standpoint, from a legal standpoint. But, you know, in the meantime, there's just so many other underground operations that are just nonstop going. So I'm going to bring you that coverage right now. So we'll take a look at, I think this might be a couple of months back that this was discovered, but you know, I'm offering a counter pushback to the press when they tell people that, oh, it's perfectly safe. There's no concerns. There's no concerns about mail-in votes. And even they're all being exposed. They're being exposed, but we need to see more than just expose people at this point. We're beyond exposés only. All right, so here we go.
To be some major voting problems with the vote by mail election underway. Corruption allegations are swirling already, as about 6% of all mail-in votes are being set aside amidst vote bundling allegations. Our chief investigative reporter, Jonathan Dienst, is live outside City Hall with more. Jonathan?
Yeah, numerous voters we spoke with concerned their votes won't count, that allegations of ballot stuffing could improperly sway the outcome of city council elections here in New Jersey's third largest city. More than 800 votes already set aside out of 12,000 sent in. That's because of images like this. People apparently sending in multiple mail-in ballots all at once. In a completely different town, Haledon, a post office spokesman confirms they're investigating the reported discovery of 300 Patterson City ballots bundled in a mailbox there. Patterson's mayor says the voting problems could be criminal.
If they're finding bundles of ballots in mailboxes, then the appropriate authorities must take the appropriate action.
Outside City Hall, where control of the city council is in the balance, residents who voted by mail disgusted.
That just means that our vote is null and void if you guys are stuffing ballots. So that just means that our vote, it doesn't really count.
It puts in question the integrity of the whole voting system.
Two candidates from one ward have been pointing fingers, as a third says mail vote fraud is a bad problem this election.
There's people stealing them out of mailboxes. I'm getting phone calls from people that said they never received them.
Because of coronavirus, all ballots are by mail this election. There have been reports of postal workers leaving stacks of ballots in building lobbies because voting rolls have outdated addresses. To try to prevent fraud, election officials here are comparing signatures. This as some residents wonder where the FBI and state attorney general are in this.
You guys need to get up off your butt and do your job and find out exactly what's going on, because if you're not doing your job, then why should we be paying you?
Spokesman for the FBI and the state attorney general both declined to comment. A spokesman for the post office says its inspectors are investigating as of now. As county officials say, any evidence of wrongdoing, they'll report to law enforcement. Live in Patterson, Jonathan Dienst, News 4.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So there you go. You have that's coming out. That was coming out of the New York area and probably I think a little bit of New Jersey, but you're getting you've heard the people. The people are speaking out about what's happening. So I'm telling you, it does not look good, guys. In a perfect world or in a civil world or in a world that we were not being controlled by elites and technocrats, people, maybe they would not be, this interference wouldn't be going on. But who's demanding that we do the mail-in votes? Who has spent money? The Democrats wanted money, stimulus package, the stimulus package to include money for this type of voting. So, I mean, the next stimulus is the next issue. That's just going to be more. It looks like that's more lip service and more special interest. They've already. The thing about it is that Pelosi and Schumer and all these people, they are earmarking funds that will not reach these small businesses and many of these people that actually could use that money for stimulus payment or in a stimulus program. So I'm just saying, where are we? If this is the kind of voter, if this is what the voting process is going to look like, why are we going to vote? I mean, are you going to wait for somebody to come to your house and take your vote? Some activist to come around and take your vote and harvest it? Because in some cases, you can turn ballots in up to 11 days after the election. I mean, this is not, they're always throwing around the word democracy. Well, to me, we have no integrity if this is what's going to be allowed, if this is going to be permitted. If this is legal, then we've already lost. To me, we've already lost. I mean, I don't mean to be Debbie Downer or negative Nancy, but I have to, but I can't be cynical, but I'm not shout out to Old School Wolf. I am not a death by altruism personality, but I'm saying you can't have these kinds of things going on and then rah, we have integrity. Those two things just don't line up. And it's going to be frustrating to see an outcome when we vote. Look what we see already. If people are already voting, if people are already voting and illegally voting, it's not going to go well. It's not going to end well. And this whole projection about who's going to accept the results of the election. I mean, you can go back to 2016 and Hillary Clinton asked Trump the same thing on the debate stage. Well, are you going to accept she puts that propaganda out there, those buzzwords out there. Well, is he going to accept the election with the outcomes? We are a constitutional republic. For the informed, we know we are a constitutional republic, but for the low informational voter, they think that this is, whoever gets the most votes wins. That's not the way this system was designed. They don't consider the electoral college. Now that's going to be their next. I think they lost the battle on eliminating on doing things with the electoral college. So now they're just going to outright just raw cheat. Stuff ballots, hijack ballots, have the Uber Eats guy pick up your ballot. Alien believers. I try. I try not to go on too much of a rant, but I'm just saying, I cannot live in this pretend kind of thing, this pretend kind of world. It's just getting more questionable. If we have this much illegal we've got known illegal activity going on with our election already, then to me, it should be disqualified already, right? Why do we need to wait and see, we know they're cheating, so let's go ahead and vote anyway to see if they cheated. See if they actually cheated. We need to go all the way to November to find out that they actually cheated. But we knew they were cheating. We knew they were cheating and stuffing ballots and voter rolls had, deceased people on it. And then Fluffy down the street was allowed to vote. Fluffy had everybody with a cat added their cat and their dog to the mail-in vote. Do we really need to wait to November to see that this is a disaster? They've already overthrown the values of this country, is what I'm saying. That's what I see. And that's why I think people will say, well, if they think things are too far gone. Well, to a great extent, yes. Because why are we having this conversation? Sideshow Bob cheated. I mean, yeah, and that's why, and that brings me back to this question. That brings me back to this. Has America seen its last free and fair election? I'll probably keep that one in circulation for a little bit because I think it's more than possible. I think 2016, I think they projected that Trump was assisted by the Russians. So they started projecting, but in fact, I'm thinking the last election could very well possibly have been the last free and fair election. Yeah, some people might push back on that, but that's just, I think that the American people voted for Trump. I think all of the butthurt feminist, hardcore, liberals and progressive, they were angry as all get out that Hillary did not win. I mean, you saw America's instability, mental instability come to the forefront when Trump's announcement, when it was announced that he won. So there you go. And then before that, the other administration. So that's that. So I'm going to move us on to the next Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys for coming in and taking care with that button. Shout out to Let the Truth Be Told. Let the Truth Be Told says, talking about family animals voting, why not register your baby to vote? At least the baby has a social security number. The adult can vote for the baby. I know, I don't have a baby, but, you know, you're killing me. Thank you so much. Nice to see you. Let the truth be told. Thank you so much for coming in. So we'll go on to the next segment here. All right. So we have a little clip here from protester. It looks like they're getting a little bit more tough. You know, it's amazing what's going on. We got, it looks like an Antifa member peppered. Well, for lack of a better term. So I'm going to share that with you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment.
Come on. Enough is enough. John, don't do this, John. Good God Almighty. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Will somebody stop the damn match? Enough's enough. The poor son of a, he's broken in half.
All right. Now that sounded like, you know, that's, to me, that actually sounded like it almost sounded like a 1997 game or like an NFL game or something. But that was an Antifa member being, him getting pushed back. And of course, it blows back on the liberal narrative that these are peaceful protesters. All right. So, and for our final installment today, thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment, Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate you. We're going to go to another story in which we're going to talk about, we're going to end on a note regarding the actual, on politics in this case. So I thank you guys so much for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Hope you guys are doing well and that your Wednesday is off to a great start. I really appreciate you for coming in. And just give me one more second here. I really appreciate you guys and your patience. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen with you. Thank you guys so much. And we'll have just a little bit of sponsorship here just a second. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn.
This segment of our show is brought to you by our good friends at the John Birch Society. Less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. The JBS is a constitutional and educational organization that's been around for over 60 years, dedicated to upholding and defending the Constitution and working to preserve our freedoms and liberties in this country. The JBS does not endorse any political party or candidates. Rather, it focuses on the education, training, and development of the American voters.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Shout out to you, Samuel Steady Rock. I'm going to take you guys right now over to our vetted source, The New American. All right, so from this, we have Republicans registering thousands more voters than Democrats in battleground states. All right, so this is written by Bob Adelman. All right. So, in a report released by the Trump Victory Committee exclusively to the Axios on Monday, Ronna McDaniel, the chair of the Republican National Committee, RNC, said that, quote, as enthusiasm for President Trump continues to grow, so does the Republican Party. Over 100,000 new voters are ready to cast their ballot for 4 more years of President Trump's promises made, promises kept agenda, and elect Republicans up and down the ballot on November 3rd. Despite the COVID shutdown, the report showed that those newly registered voters are more than double the number at the same stage of the election cycle in 2016. Now, the Democratic advantage in Pennsylvania has lessened by 133,000 voters since 2016 and 87,000 voters in Florida. The Democrats' next advantage in North Carolina, Arizona, and Iowa has also shrunk significantly. There's more evidence of the president's accelerating momentum as election day draws closer. On Monday, for example, a survey taken by Rasmussen Reports shows that the president has the approval of more than half of likely voters in November, way ahead of the 44% approval rate of then President Obama at the same time during his first term, August 3rd of 2012. All right, so here again, it continues here. More revealing from the Rasmussen survey is that Trump has the approval of 30% of likely Democrat voters, 49% of likely independent voters, and perhaps most importantly, 48% of likely Black voters, among other, quote, non-white, end quote, likely voters. Trump's approval rate is 63%. Now, of course, you'll see these numbers skewed and, flipped and whatnot in the liberal media. Of course, they've got Trump trailing just as they did back in 2016. And of course, they would, the liberal blowback or narrative would be, of course, the Black voters aren't going to vote at 48%. If you remember another segment that I've done, it talked about, I remember Robert Johnson of BET talking about Trump's, at the time when the economy was strong, that Trump, that they should not dismiss Trump's actions and dismiss the results of what Trump has done for the economy and how it has affected the positive effects that it's had on the Black community. But then you had a blowback from CNN's Ana Navarro, who claims to be a Republican, saying, oh my gosh, well, what kind of Black person would be voting for Donald Trump? You mean, she referred to Diamond and Silk, I'm paraphrasing, as something of a polyester and something on a lower dig. But, Ana Navarro is pretty disgusting. So, she's right at home with CNN and their gossip rag style news. So I'll finish up here. Okay, so it says, while these numbers may not translate directly into votes in November, it is one more indicator of Trump's momentum. As the TNA, the New American, reported last Friday, quote, swing, end quote, voters, those who switched parties in 2016 to vote for Trump are staying with the president into November. According to Change Research, which describes itself as a left-leaning polling firm, also revealed the momentum being enjoyed by the president. 3 weeks ago, the firm polled voters in 6 key battleground states, Arizona, Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and found that the Democrat Party's likely presidential candidate, Joe Biden, was leading President Trump by as much as 8 percentage points. A week later, Biden's lead had shrunk significantly to just 2 or 3 points, well within the poll's margin of error. As Change Research admitted, quote, the battleground ballot has tightened, with Trump's approval up 2 points in the past week. Okay, here it says last week, Vanity Fair, the slick, sophisticated, and liberal magazine was forced to admit that, quote, Trump still remains an edge, with independents on the economy a critical advantage. To the extent that the economy rebounds in the fall, Trump may be able to convince independent he's a safer bet to keep things moving, end quote. Two recent polls, one by Emerson College and the other by Zogby Analytics, showed Biden leading Trump by just 4 points down considerably from the average reported by Real Clear Politics of more than 8%. When the deliberate efforts to overpoll Democrats and underpoll Republicans in many of the mainstream surveys is taken into account, Biden's perceived lead over the president has vanished. The number of newly registered Republican voters is reflective of the momentum the president is enjoying. So there's some perspective for you on that, because you're going to hear, you're constantly hearing that, oh, he's trailing, he's eating the dust, he's done. So there you have that. And I really appreciate you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn on your Wednesday. Appreciate that so much. And so I'm probably going to wrap this up in about 5 minutes. And once again, I appreciate you guys so much for coming in today and for all that you do to support the channel. And to see, the rapper says people freak when we call it the Wuhan flu, when it is true. Asian people are not hurt by the word. Also, now the WHO is claiming that the virus did not happen in Wuhan. Thank you so much for that, rapper. Yes, they are, I think it's just, to them, it's another social experiment. They're pretty well known for. Let's see. Alien Believers says, I wish you had more of a choice, but better to keep the devil, then, but a new one. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to be wrapping up the stream, and I'm going to do a final shout out here. Shout out to Alien Believers. Shout out to the rapper 10,000. Chrysler Imperial H, Crazy Chick Sheena. Shout out to DJ Vision Barnett. So nice to see you, DJ. Hope you're doing well. Shout out to Samuel Steady Rock. Really appreciate you. Shout out to the rapper 10,000. If I repeat your name, it's done with much endearment, not to annoy you. Let the truth be told. Thank you so much for all you do and all your support. And also the patrons, if you guys want to drop your links, you can feel free to do that. That helps me out a little bit. Helps me out quite a bit. Sometimes I just don't get to it, but you can feel free to do that. If you want to drop somebody else's link, then you can do that as well. So yeah, but guys, I just don't think that this thing is my concern with this election cycle. I don't think everything is as clear cut. We've got so many issues. I think that the vaccine issue, I think is going to be the next. I think that's going to be the next extreme. And I think that's going to be where the rubber is going to meet the road. And we're going to see some people are going to reveal themselves. Because I've heard, what's the plural of hearsay right now? That it's not going to be mandatory. Not sure I believe that. There again, not to be Debbie Downer or not to be the super cynic, but I think we're not in control here. In many cases, we're not. There's many issues, but when it comes to money, I think that's gonna run the roost. Let's see. I'm not afraid to call things out. But we've been betrayed before. So I'm just saying, I just suggest, keep your eyes open and stay in the fight, for a lack of a better word. Okay, let me make sure I didn't miss anybody here. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels. Thank you so much for coming in. I saw you in here earlier. Luciano, thank you so much. De Blasio, yeah, he's a nightmare. The DJ Vision Barnett, thank you so much for coming in. And let's see. Let the truth be told, Luciano. So I'm just going to post this one really quick. Yes, Luciano says, Former Black Panther Larry Pickney said the Black Panthers were legit until it was infiltrated by commies. It's been rogue ever since. He said there was a group called the White Panthers. Let's see, who else do we have? I think we're kind of getting down to the wire here, but thank you guys so much. Unique View, I think, was able to come in. Thank you guys so much for everything. And as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much for taking care to hit that like button. Keep an eye out for other videos coming out. That's what's next. And of course, I appreciate you guys. And then like the merch, I'm going to be rolling out some merch very soon. So hope you guys are doing well. And I really hope you guys have a great rest of the day.